Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of keep moving down, and again, we'll just press add here. Okay, so the creation of the appointment and save. Now let's talk about this for a second, the process that the end user needs to complete. Okay, so we want the appointment created, and that appointment needs to be on the appointment tab of the patient contact record, so that it doesn't really talk too much about the schedule where that appointment might be made. So let's kind of talk through this. As you're scheduling your intake appointment, what you might do is say, my schedule, and then, we use this find available time slot a lot for scheduling appointments. So I'm not having to manually look through and see, through 12 different clinicians' appointments or schedules and find an open slot. This find available time slot works really well. So this is kind of another tool you can use to streamline your intake and really scheduling process altogether. You can say what days to limit the client scheduling to, what type of event. So if it's an intake specifically, I could look for specifically intake times. Okay. So I'm going to leave this pretty open just so you can kind of see what comes back here. You'll notice I can even save a favorite. So if I'm always looking for the same thing, like as the intake clinician, I could save an intake search. So I don't have to click all the buttons. I just click one of my favorites. Okay, once you find your time slot, you can double click it and it's going to add it to the calendar for both the staff and the client, right? So I can come in here and I can add the client here by choosing an existing client. Just so you know, there's also an option here for add new intake. So if your process is find an available appointment first and then enter in the demographics record, you certainly can do that this way. Okay, for now, I'll just select an existing patient. Okay. Next, we'll go through and we'll just select a peer-to-peer and service. Now, you'll notice that these didn't fill in for me. Okay, and the reason for that is because I don't have any staff default set up. Okay, so here's another tip for automating your processes. Okay, so I'll come over here to the ClinicTracker main screen again. Okay, staff info. Okay, I'm going to use the binocular button and I'll choose my name. And I'm going to come to additional options. And then at the very bottom, there's event/appointment defaults. Okay, this is where you can come in and you can have this rule say all patient groups, both adult and children, fill in the scheduled event for me. So we'll say, my default event type is peer follow-up. Or maybe I'm an intake clinician, so maybe it's peer intake. Okay, and then I could say the program is NA, or I could say it's always this peer-to-peer program, or it's always an intake program. Okay, I only have one service. Okay, and then I can even go as far to say, if a client has multiple diagnosis assignments and I need to make sure this clinician is treating specific diagnoses only, I can link in the associated diagnosis codes for this clinician. And then the system will automatically pick the right diagnosis assignment for me once the appointment's created. Okay, I'm going to leave that blank for now, but actually I will add one in for you. So I'll just kind of pick one of these, but you can add as many as you need. And actually after the next update, we're going to make this a little bit easier to set up where you can come in here and check multiple instead of having to kind of click through and do this. Okay. So once that's saved, if I go over and look at the event, all of that information would have been filled in for me. Okay, I can still make changes to it, but that information would have been filled in for me. It makes it a little bit easier for that the scheduling staff. Okay, and then you'll notice that there's a create linked appointment button right here. So I have the choice here of letting the staff create that. So I could say create linked appointment. If I don't want to create that right away and I just want to save and close, I can do that here. Okay, now we just scheduled an appointment, or excuse me, an event on the calendar, but we did not create the linked appointment, meaning that there's not going to be an entry in that client's treatment history or that patient contact screen that we just saw. So that compliance rule, that compliance task wouldn't yet be completed until the appointment record is created. Right, now that appointment record can be created a few ways. We can go back into the scheduler, we can pull up this item, and we can click the create linked appointment button. Okay, so that's a very manual way to go. You also have the option of enabling automatic appointment creation based on the schedule. So if you want to do this a couple days ahead of the scheduled appointment date, have the system go through the schedule and automatically create the linked appointments for you a couple days ahead of time, we can do that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and say admin config, options. Okay, in this case, I'm going to just use the binocular and look for link. Okay, and so we're looking for things like automatically create linked appointments from scheduled events. So automatically create linked appointments from scheduled events. Okay, again, admin config, options, and then just use your binoculars to search for linked, and you'll find this. Okay, now you'll notice I have this enabled, so it highlighted that setting for me in bright yellow for a second, and you saw that it's enabled. And right below it, it says, how many days ahead do you want this to create the appointment? So basically what's gonna happen is every so often during the day, the system's gonna say, look ahead 3 days, and it's gonna say, are there any events on the calendar that don't have a linked appointment? And if there is, go ahead and create the linked appointment for that item.